Color STEM Conference presents High Tech Sunday. On today's episode of High Tech Sunday, our hosts, Dr. Mark Vaughn and Lango Deen, sit down with the 2018 Women of Color Technologist of the Year, Dr. Donna Bell, for a conversation on Industry 4.0, technology and career development. Up first is Corning Incorporated's Manager of Technical Talent Pipelining, Dr. Mark Vaughn. Next is Career Communication Group's Senior Technology Editor, Lango Deen. Finally, our esteemed guest, Dr. Donna Bell. Dr. Bell is Global Director, Technology and Features Strategy and Planning at Ford Motor Company. Collaborating with key stakeholders, Dr. Bell establishes and communicates customer-driven strategies that increase corporate growth in areas such as connectivity, artificial intelligence, driver assist technology, and robotics. Dr. Bell's proven delivery and technical excellence led to her receiving multiple patents and delivering many revenue-generating firsts to Ford Technologies, including the award-winning Sync infotainment system, the fuel-saving stop-start technology, and the first-to-industry My Energy lifestyle project. Dr. Bell's involvement in the community is extensive and involves creating programs that educate and develop students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. She has held multiple leadership positions in professional organizations, including National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Women Engineers, and Ford's first employee research group, the Ford African Ancestry Network. And without further delay, High Tech Sunday, featuring Dr. Mark Vaughn and Lango Deen.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Brandon. And Dr. Bell, welcome. It is such a pleasure to welcome you to High Tech Sunday. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Vaughn. Thank you for having me and allowing me an opportunity to, give my perspective on technology and Industry 4.0.
Great. We're looking forward to digging into this mystery box of Industry 4.0. We often hear it mentioned in the technology community, and it's a little bit inaccessible for some. And so we're looking forward to being able to have an expert such as yourself kind of guide us a little bit along the lines of this revolution. But looking at your CV, and especially knowing that you are by and large a lifelong STEM advocate and STEM practitioner, it's always great to have the opportunity to learn a little bit about the journey. We see the accolades, especially of note for this conversation is, of course, you are being the 2018 Technologist of the Year with the Women of Color Conference coming up in just 6 weeks or so. But how did you get started? How did you get interested in STEM? What is the passion that drives you, and what was the impetus for this exciting journey of yours?
So really, and thank you for the question, Dr. Vaughn, it really started when I grew up in Detroit. I always pride myself on the fact that I am a product of Detroit Public Schools. Many of our big cities and the public school systems get a bad rap, but Detroit Public Schools has been very good to me in where I started and where I've ended. So growing up on the northwest side of Detroit, I was always given an opportunity to expand my knowledge. And the elementary school that I went to, Pastor Elementary, there were always opportunities, math type programs and science type programs. But the thing that really did it for me was I was very interested in hands-on, and I wanted to solve problems. And when I was in the sixth grade, when all the students are in the sixth grade, they're given an opportunity to either take home economics or a wood shop. And so I decided on wood shop that I wanted to have that hands-on experience. I wanted to be like my big brother and my father, work with wood, and ended up in the sixth grade building a sailboat. And just like the other students in the class, which were majority male, I participated in a competition and did pretty good. And I was sold at that point. My mother and my father always saw that I was good in math and science. And so they really encouraged me to stick with the programs and the classes that would help really develop and nurture that skill set. And so that's what I did, always sitting in the front of the class because I loved math and always wanting to be really in the midst of the different experiments and labs for science. It was just, the thing that really motivated me to want to get up and go to school every day. Just really wanting to uncover what the art of the possible was when I got to school. So it was really that young, the inspiration and motivation and really push and then passion on my end that really drove me into STEM. And then I just carried that through middle school and high school. And, as I was in high school, the whole computer industry was just going. It just started. And I was really intrigued. I wanted to learn more and didn't know anything about engineering. No one had ever talked to me about what an engineer did or, what they had to do in order to be successful. But ended up telling my mother at the time that I wanted to be a computer scientist. And so, given her network of people that she interfaced with, she um, came back to me and said, well, what do you think about engineering? She said, because if you do electrical engineering, that's something that you can take with you. You can work on computers, you can work on hardware. There are a lot of different options. And so, again, just really nurturing me through the whole experience. And then that's when I said, okay, I think I will stay focused in engineering and apply to Lawrence Technological University here in Southfield, Michigan, and the rest is history.
I believe that one of the things that stood out for me as you were sharing that part of your journey as a youngster, did I hear you say that you had a interest in the art of the possible? Is that what you said? It struck me that that is kind of a guide, a north star, if you will, for those of us who are in technology disciplines, but it can be that for whatever the discipline you're in. And it sounds like the process of discovery is one that continues to inspire you. If you think about that and the decision to go into electrical engineering and computer science and how you have built your career, you mentioned the fact that you were inspired at first by your father, your brothers. As a woman in technology, when you got to college, was that at all a challenge for you? Because it still seems to be the thought that STEM of all stripes is a man's world. So how did you deal with coming into that as a woman?
So, I have always had this mindset about setting goals. And for me, setting those goals has never been whether I'm, a woman, if I'm male or female. I've always gone into tackling goals with the expectation that there was going to be a good outcome. Whether there was or not, that's the way that I went into things. And so I think it was really about not having fear of failure, but of success, right? So having this vision that that I could definitely be successful And success is different in different people's eyes. But for me, it was about having a better life and creating a better life for my parents. And when you have that type of vision, it drives you every day. So, and I don't remember ever being in class and thinking to myself, I'm a woman. This is going to be challenging. And there were some challenging times, but you really have to think about how to overcome those challenges. And again, having that positive mindset, you go into it thinking that, hey, I can overcome this, right? I can be in a classroom, even if the males in the class are looking at me like, why is she here? I can figure out how to, create friendships. I can figure out how to engage with individuals to do homework. There are things that I can offer that maybe they don't have, and they might have things that I don't have, right? And so, how do you figure out how to complement someone else? As I realize we're going to get into this later, but as I mentor young women, not even young women, but it could be veteran women. I try to tell them that when you go into a room, you're going into a room with everything that comes along, right? So if I'm an engineer, regardless of whether I'm a woman or not, I'm coming in the room as an engineer. So I'm bringing my thoughts, my ideas, my voice, and I'm expecting that others in the room are going to acknowledge that. Yes, there are challenges. Even today, there are challenges with, people with males listening or having the dominant voice. But you have to be secure and confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. And I think that was the thing that was important for me when I got to college. I was never nervous about it. It was never a problem for me because I knew what I brought. And there were people that were in the room that, over time they learned what I brought, and we became really good friends over time. So yeah, you can go into, I went into the situation that this is something different for me because nobody else, in my family had done this before, but I knew that there could be a positive outcome, and that is the thing that kept me going every day.
Wow, I love the empowerment in that personal testimony. But you said that you bring your voice, your experience, your ideas, and that transcends gender, it transcends ethnicity, because you said, I am an engineer, and that's how I show up. I know that you also tapped into another truth as you spoke of mindset. As you may know, I'm a minister, and I've been recently preaching on the mind. And I know that you are a woman of faith as well. So, can you speak to the role that your faith has played in your journey so far, and how it continues to be an important part of it?
Dr. Vaughn, absolutely. You asked me that question, and I got chills when you asked me that question. My my family is deeply rooted in Christianity, and so as I grew up, being a young child, my mother made sure we were in church every Sunday. We went to Sunday school. I did Girl Scouts. We did Vacation Bible School. So we were always engaged in church. My grandmother was really strong in the Baptist convention. And so she would take us to Third Sunday meeting. We would go to the different conventions, both regional and national. And that always played a strong part in creating who I am today, right? Who I was at the time and who I've grown up to be. I think it is so important to have a relationship with God and to know that he has already set up what your life should look like. I think about the Bible in itself, and that faith without works is dead, right? So you have to put the work in. He is not expecting that we are just going to have things show up at our doorstep. He will give us the strength and the knowledge that we need to be successful, but we have to do the work. And that has always been a critical part of my life growing up and what my parents have instilled in me. And even to this day, it's something that I continue to instill in my own children that, you're not going this alone. There is definitely a higher power that is making whatever things that are happening in your life, making them happen, whether, you like it or not. Uh, there is a plan for you. And so I keep that with in my heart every day, and in my mind. And I think it comes across in how I interact with people. People always tell me, Donna, you've got a calm demeanor. You always bring calmness to the room. And that's because of what has been instilled in me and what I hold in my heart relative to the word that has been taught to me over time. So, absolutely have a strong spiritual connection and always engage others to think the same way, have that real strong faith, and having that guidance from our Lord is very important.
That is such a really special way for us to actually wrap up this section of the conversation. You said you got goosebumps, and now you gave the rest of us chills with that personal reminder, because we've gone through some unprecedented times here in the world. I was going to say in our country, but it's in the world over the course of the last 4 or 5 months, and certainly it is by God's grace that we are not only continuing to survive, but we're finding a way to thrive. And one of those things continues to be the leverage of technology. So as we pivot to that topic, which is the thematic focus for this week, can you shed a little light on this whole idea of the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0? What is that all about?
Yes, absolutely. So, when you think about how technology has evolved, just how industry has evolved, and you think about the different phases of the Industrial Revolution, starting with steam and moving into electricity, and now being into the fourth Industrial Revolution. And I guess I should start with, the industry that I'm in really contributed significantly to the first and second industrial revolution. So when I think about how Henry Ford had a vision about moving the world, right? He wanted to make sure that people's lives were better by having access via the open road, right? And so, as he was with actually a number of other auto manufacturers, when I look at what the cohort looked like, there were like 60, 70 plus automakers at one point in time. And the way that things worked is the vehicles, when they were built in a multi-story building, and the frames were set up in a space, a big space, and each a worker, skills trade person would go from vehicle to vehicle to put their parts on the frames or whatever part of the bodies or chassis that were there at the time. And then once they finished with that floor, then all of the vehicles were transported to the next floor, and then the process started all over again. So you can imagine how inefficient that entire process was. And so Henry Ford, you know, was always thinking about, ways of improving. And so he really took note from things like canneries and meatpacking industries because at the time, you would see that the cans, in the canneries and in flour mills and in meatpacking plants, the actual product moved down the line. So the workers never moved, but the products did. And so it was, that initial problem that Henry Ford had with, being efficient and getting product out faster, and taking that problem and marrying it with the innovation of things like a cannery and a meat packing plant. And that's how we got the automated assembly line. And and so and that was really a part of the end of the first industrial revolution and start of the second industrial revolution, but it was in an effort to move the world, and that was the vision that he had. And so now we're here, right? Now we're here in what we're calling the fourth industrial revolution, and we've come to a point where we have to get even more efficient, right? And it's not always about moving things out quickly. It's about how do we customize and personalize products to meet our customers' needs. And so that's where, Industry 4.0 comes in, is that we're taking technology, things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, 3D printing, and additive manufacturing. We're taking the Internet of Things being connecting product to a computer system, right? To know where it is, know what it has available to it or in it, and how it is going to be used later, right? So having all of this information about a particular part, but leveraging that technology in order to build cars more efficiently and personalize and customize them so customers get exactly what they want.
You're listening to High Tech Sunday, featuring Dr. Mark Vaughn, Lango Deen, and our special guest, Dr. Donna Bell. This week's episode is brought to you by the 2020 Women of Color STEM Conference. And now, a word from our sponsor.
From waves of change come oceans of opportunities. This has always been our Women of Color STEM Conference message and mission. Now more than ever, we are expanding our rich history and track record of hosting live-streamed award shows and interviews, virtual job fairs, learning, and networking experiences as we reset to rise at our 2020 Women of Color Virtual STEM Conference, October 8th through the 10th. The world is counting on us. Come ride the waves of change as you explore our limitless oceans of opportunities that can enrich, inspire, connect, and support your continued professional and personal growth that have always been the hallmarks of our women-driven conference. Together, we can help our nation's industries, government, academia, and the military reset, reinvent, and re-energize. You belong here within our trusted community. Ride the waves of change as we reset to rise. The world is counting on us.
Again, this episode of High Tech Sunday is brought to you by the 2020 Women of Color STEM Conference. Now, back to the show.
So if you think about we have a factory of tomorrow at Ford, and there are a number of things that we're doing, not only for our customers, but also for our supplier engagement, for our employees, and other elements of the business. And so one of the technologies that we're using is a sensor technology. So if there is a worker on the line and the part is not built correctly, there are a team of people that are notified when that happens. And so there are sensors that are put in place that can recognize whether a part is built correctly or not. Once that team is notified, they take note of what happened, and they can go back and change the process so that we don't get this error anymore, right? And so there are things like that are put in place. We also have exoskeleton machines or outfits that people can put on to prevent having injuries. So it really helps them to reach, like if they have to reach up into the vehicle to prevent back injuries or shoulder or any part of your body injuries. It actually assists the person in reaching up into the vehicle to help them do their job more efficiently and with less pain. One of the other things that we have are robotics. And so putting robots in the plant that can get the parts that are needed to build a vehicle to the right place at the right time very efficiently. And by the way, there are sensors that are on those robots that know when there is an obstacle in the way. So they can move around people, they can move around parts of the building and other obstacles in order to make sure that they're safe and that the people around them are safe. So there's just so many different elements. We have advanced materials that we're working with. And so all of these things together is what creates Industry 4.0. And having this factory that is smart enough to know the customer, to know exactly what needs to be where, when it needs to be, and knows it can inform the supply base when parts need to be in the plant and what parts need to be. So now you don't have to worry about having a lot of extra parts in stock that being a waste. Now you know that, okay, we can stop building this part, we can build this other part, and then the systems will automatically inform the supply base that this is happening. And then we get to the dealership, and the dealership knows exactly what vehicles are coming, what features are coming, and then they can marry that with knowing what the customer is looking for. So, right now, we're really, because of the pandemic, but even before we were working on this, taking a look at how we can have a person buy a vehicle all digitally, right? So if I go in and say, these are the things that I want, and a dealership knows exactly what they have in stock based on the connections we've made from the plant, it just makes everything so much easier. And so these are the things that we're doing within our company. And I know that other companies are doing the same thing, but manufacturing has got to be more efficient and eliminate the waste from the process so that we can get more product out to customers just the way that they want it. So again, making their lives easier and better.
That is fascinating. I mean, you talk about waste mitigation, you talk about efficiencies, the things that we often hear about, machine-to-machine communications, Internet of Things, and these what used to seem like futuristic topics, all happening and coming into their own right now. My role at Corning Incorporated is actually managing technical talent for research, development, and engineering. And certainly, as we think about Industry 4.0, the career development and management piece is huge. And so we're going to turn and talk about the pipeline. And to do that, I'm happy to hand you over to my co-host, Lango Deen. Hey, Lango.
Hi, Dr. Vaughn. Thank you so much. Welcome again, Dr. Bell. Very nice to have you here. As you know, I was listening to the conversation between you and Dr. Vaughn, and this story that I've heard before, where you told your mother you wanted to be a computer scientist, and she went away and had a little chat with people that she knew, and then she came back and had this talk with you about doing electrical engineering and how you could leverage that into so many other things. And right through your career, you've leveraged your career into electronics, computer control systems, industrial and systems engineering. And going back to what Dr. Vaughn has done, leveraging his career, right at the beginning when we talked about the role of technology during the coronavirus in the early days of the pandemic. And he looked at how his focus on optical network architecture and the research he did on what traffic, internet traffic, networks, and all that sort of thing, and how he is where he is today. And what both of you are doing, and all these other people who are in the CCG alumni group are doing, is mentoring people and passing on this information. There's one thing that you said during the gala when you were accepting your award 2 years ago as Technologist of the Year, and you said, growing up, I wasn't exactly sure where my love of STEM would lead. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, there aren't too many paths laid out for a Black girl from Detroit interested in learning about how things worked. So I decided to forge my own. Well, you've not only forged your own trailblazing career, you're also helping others. For example, you serve as a trustee with the Society of Automotive Engineering Foundation. But you also work with teams to develop relationships, raise funds to support STEM education. So, and a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Boyd was on High Tech Sunday, and she was talking about inequity, broadband inequity for students. So going back to that quote and going back to this idea of leveraging that you mentioned earlier, how are you helping students of color within industry see themselves in STEM jobs?
Well, thank you, Lango, and thank you for that for that awesome question. I have a passion for seeing people of color succeed, and it is indeed a passion both inside and outside the company. And when I decided to take on actually, I'm going to go back a little bit further. When I was in college, I was a part of National Society of Black Engineers. And in that role, it was an opportunity to expose other students of color to some of the great things that were going on in the field of engineering. And so that was my very first connection with creating change, right? And so as I continued my journey and I moved in, I actually worked for Dow Chemical for a short time, and there weren't a lot of people of color that worked in my building, but that was the first time I've had the opportunity to see that there were disparities. And so then coming back to Detroit, working at Ford, I have had more of an opportunity to engage in National Society of Black Engineers, Detroit Professional Chapter. I was the president of the chapter for 2 years, and that was an opportunity for me to see how the programs really impacted the students. We do a lot of recruiting at the NSBE conference, but you don't get a chance to really see how the hands-on programs and tools that are created for the students. You don't see how it impacts them. And when you see that they have something and they start in from scratch, and at the end of the day there's something that actually flies or moves or creates noise, or they see how energy is created and how it moves things, and how they're so excited about what they've had a chance to create. It gives you a real sense of wanting to do more of that. And that it's really a downfall for me, and I call it a downfall, but sometimes I fill my plate up too much, right? So SAE board of on the board of trustees for the foundation, and creating the A World in Motion program, so AWIMS program, where there are projects that are developed specifically for students starting from kindergarten all the way through middle school, where they can learn how engineering and science work together, right, to solve problems. And so being a part of that, I've seen how students have excelled, and really and excited about what opportunities are given to them. And then there's NACME, so the National Action Coalition for Minorities in Engineering. And this is more college-based students, but really giving them an opportunity to expose them to industry, and them coming in for summer internships and really understanding and learning how theory and practice come together. So that it's those things that really motivate me to continue the work that I do, even for the Women of Color in STEM that is being hosted here in Detroit. Well, it normally hosted here in Detroit. It's virtual this year, but being an executive in the classroom is very important to expose children of color to other people of color that have done it, right? If you don't see it, you don't know that you can be it. So we really want to make sure that we stay in the classroom, get into whatever community efforts we can to let young students of color know, and their parents, because I think that's a key point, that their parents have got to be able to see that there's an opportunity for them to do better, to be better, to live better, and that's definitely my goal, is to make sure that I can expose myself and the things that I've done to so many people out there. I want to reach as many people as I possibly can to help change their life trajectory.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Bell. You are a part of the CCG alumni group, which means that at some point over the last 30-something years, you accepted an award from either Bayer or Women of Color, and you come back year after year and you share your knowledge and you share your insights and share your perspectives with young people. You're also part of the SAE, you're part of NSBE, you're part of NACME, you're also part of the Society of Women Engineers. So there are a lot of groups that you're part of that you've talked about. But what would you say, and as I go back to the conversation you had with Dr. Vaughn, what I heard was a sense of purpose, of course, guided by your parents, but there was also a sense of purpose. So what would you say to young people working on their own to prepare, especially during this time when a lot of people are really on their own? Yes, many of us are connected via the internet and through Zoom and all those other things, but what can young people do on their own to stay the course to prepare for STEM?
There are a couple of things, Lango, that I believe students can really do. I think, Dr. Vaughn and I talked about it earlier, is really having a faith-based background, right? Having a commitment to God and the fact that He creates all, and He moves all, and we have to give Him, our all in all when it comes to anything. So it's, I don't see that I'm doing anything on my own. I truly believe that that God is there supporting me, putting the right knowledge in my head, and really moving me in the direction that He would have me to go. So that is first and foremost, is having that and establishing that is the basis, and then really having and setting goals for yourself. If you don't have goals for yourself, I feel like you're going to you're going to wander. I think about and this is something I tell my mentees all the time, that if you don't have a map, you're going to wander aimlessly. So just think about taking a trip from here to California without having a map. Would you really know where you're going? Probably not. So you've got to map out where you're going. You're going to use Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever, but you're going to get there, and you may get somewhere eventually without having a map, but you don't want to take any chances. You've got a certain amount of years of your life, and so I think it's those, and I know it's those two things. It's not that I think, but I know it's those two things: is really having faith in God, and then having a plan, setting a plan up for yourself, and that's up to you. I can't tell you what the plan is. You have to set the goals for yourself, and that's something that I've done throughout my life and my career. And to your point, is staying focused. Really staying focused on that goal. And I tell people all the time to write it down. When you write it down, it's amazing what happens. I have this document that I created when I was a young manager, and I knew I wanted to move up in the company, And I created this document with the help of one of my mentors. And the document said, I had a short-term goal, I had a long-term goal. And that long-term goal said that I wanted to be in a strategic role, working on technology and connecting new technology to our product portfolio. And I wanted it to be at a certain leadership level. And that was in 2012. And that goal was set for 5 to 10 years. I'm in that role right now. So, and going back and just reflecting on the fact that I wrote it down, I took the time to think about it. I took the time for self-reflection. I took the time for prayer and, really understanding what I wanted to do. And now I'm here. And a lot of times it blows my mind that's the case. But I think it's so important that in order for you to stay focused on your goals, you write it down. I think every single decision that you make will be aligned with where you expect to be in the future. So absolutely staying focused, staying strong, being bold, having a voice, staying focused on the end game, and getting that W for yourself, that win for yourself, I think is so utterly important.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Staying strong, staying focused. You can do better than that in terms of having those tips or a piece of advice stuck on your refrigerator or on your computer or wherever you want to put it. So it just constantly reminds you of things that you want to do. So as we count down, it's about 40 something days. As we count down to check in to Women of Color Online, it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful virtual conference. What are you going to be doing, and what is Ford going to be doing at Women of Color 2020?
Oh, awesome. I'm glad that you asked, and I am really excited about it. I have enlisted the support of many of my constituents here at Ford, and we plan on a number of different elements. One of them, as I mentioned before, being part of the executive in the classroom. So working with the CCG team to make sure that we have a presence. Ford has a presence there. We'll also be recruiting. We have a team of recruiting professionals that will be a part of the virtual career fair, and we're always excited to come to the Women of Color conference in that capacity. I have talked about being a part of one of the sessions, and we're still working through that, but I'm always excited to be a part of that. We have 4 individuals that actually received awards this year. So I think in each of the 4 categories. So so we're really excited about being there. Just got finished talking to Dr. Ken Washington about the role that he'll play, and he will have a speaking role at the gala. And so we're working through what that'll look like, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to share some of the great products that Ford is introducing with our Mustang Mach-E and with our new Bronco. So really excited about supporting as always, and we'll always support whatever way I can, and look forward also to moving into BEA 2021.
That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing you and Dr. Ken Washington online, virtually, doing what you always do. It's always a pleasure to see you on stage. I saw you on stage at BEA in February this year, and Dr. Ken Washington as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again in about 6 weeks. So at this point, I'm going to hand you back to Dr. Vaughn, and looking forward to hearing the rest of the conversation. Thank you, Dr. Bell.
Thank you so much, Lango.
I too am very much looking forward to what we will find in store for us at this really historic gathering in October for Women of Color as it is being offered virtually. The 4.0 industry revolution is here. And it is definitely, Dr. Bell, something that we appreciate you kind of giving us a peek behind the curtain about. It's one topic that I am certain we will continue to all be connected to as we move forward, not only through this year, but into this new decade. So I want to again thank you so much for carving out the time to join us for this edition of High Tech Sunday. And I'm going to turn it back over to Brandon Newby for the closing.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of High Tech Sunday. Career Communication Group's High Tech Sunday looks at professional development and technology through the lens of spiritual philosophies. In a time when digital information is more critical than ever, this weekly program is produced by and for CCG's community of alumni and professionals in science, technology, engineering, and math fields. The community runs from national thought leaders to aspiring students, and this weekly series aims to bring a concentrated discussion around technological advancements and achievements based on universal moral principles. The 1-hour podcast will be streamed every Sunday. The podcast can be accessed through the BEA Facebook page, Women of Color Facebook page, and CCG YouTube page, in addition to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Spotify. Please join us next time.